At roughly $65, the TTartisan 25mm f2.0 might be the cheapest new lens that you can buy for your Fujifilm camera. And that's the lens we're going to talk about today, is the TTartisan 25mm f2.0. So a few disclaimers up front. TTartisan sent me this 25mm as well as the 23mm to review. They tell me nothing about what to say. They have no input. We coordinate where to ship it, and I receive it, and that's it. I've reviewed their lenses before. Some I have purchased, some I have been sent. And this, like always, is my honest opinion on the lenses. I will show you some photo samples from this lens on my Fujifilm cameras, and I'll talk about a couple of key points. I will have affiliate links in the description. Oftentimes it seems that if you go to TTartisan's own Shopify store, it's cheaper than it's listed on Amazon sometimes. So especially if you're in the US, check their site directly. I'll link to that as well in the description. But right now you're looking at between $51 and $65 for this. And this video is not going to be a comprehensive study of the lens. I'm not going to do the same things that others have done to repeat all the information. I like to just take the lens, throw it on a camera, and shoot with it and see how much I enjoy using it, kind of see some of the image samples I get from it, but I don't really think about it too much beyond just throwing the lens on my camera and going to try and enjoy it and shoot with it. And that's what I did with this lens. So I will talk about it a bit. I will show you photo samples, but there may be situations that I missed, things that you might want to see that I didn't do. So you can always leave those in the comments, and maybe I'll get around to those kinds of shots or answering those kinds of questions in another video. So what is this lens? Okay, so it's a manual focus 25mm lens for the Fujifilm system, but they also make it for almost all the other crop sensor systems. Obviously I'm a Fujifilm shooter, so I'm using it on my X-T4. Some of the shots were also shot on an X-H1. 25mm equals out to be about a 37.5mm focal length on a full frame equivalent, that is 37.5. That's a pretty decent focal length for like street photography. That's a very common range for street photography, which is pretty much what I've been concentrating on for the past couple years. The close focus distance is 0.25 meters, so less than a foot, which is very, very nice. The aperture range goes from f2 to f16, and there's a half stop between f2 and f2.8, and the rest are full stops, but it does skip f11, like some of these other TTartisan's lenses do. If you're interested in the element count and element layout, it's 7 elements in 5 groups. I think it's like 166 grams or somewhere in that range. They actually didn't have an exact weight on their website, but they say it's around 166 grams to 180 something grams. It's very light, but it's made of complete metal and glass, so it feels really well made, and it's really, really compact. It's pretty much a pancake lens. I don't know I don't know how thin you have to get an official label of being a pancake lens, but to me it's a pancake lens. It's the lowest profile lens I've ever owned for my Fuji system, beyond the 27mm that Fujifilm makes. I owned that for a while, and that's probably a little thinner. I haven't measured it and compared, but beyond that one, this is the thinnest lens that I've owned. So this fits really well in a bag, whether it's on the camera or not. Obviously, there are no electrical contacts on the lens, so it doesn't communicate at all to the camera. Not having those electrical contacts is not a huge deal. I can still label the lens, the name of the lens, and the metadata in the camera menu, so I can at least, on my X-T4 at least, and that way I can pull up the images and see what lens I shot it with. I won't know what aperture I was set at, but that's okay. I'll roll some image samples, and then on the other end of that, we'll talk a little bit more. so like I said, my image samples don't like demonstrate like maybe how sharp it might be, or it doesn't demonstrate what the bokeh might look like in all these different situations. But it just gives you those samples should give you an idea of the fact that when I put it on my camera, it's just a fun lens to use. I think that's one of the biggest things I look for in a lens or a camera, how I connect with it and how fun it is to use. Yes, there's a certain quality threshold that I think all my gear needs to meet, but it seems to me that most of these lenses are meeting that quality. They're at least meet a certain expectation that I feel comfortable grabbing them and shooting them for pretty much anything I shoot. So here it is mounted on the X-T4. I haven't talked about the focusing ring and aperture rings quite yet, but the focus ring is noticeably thicker than the aperture ring, so it's not very easy to get them confused. The aperture ring is in front and the focus ring is closer to the camera. The focus ring on this is actually one of the best that I've used on one of these budget lenses. It's really, really smooth, and it feels just really precise and smooth. There's no wiggle like you can feel that it's cheaply made or anything like that. It feels really, really well built and just has a smooth feeling to it. Like I said, it's one of my favorite focusing rings on these cheaper lenses that I've used so far. On other lenses, the smaller, the thinner aperture ring kind of annoyed me sometimes, but I've gotten used to it to the point where it's not a big deal anymore. And like I said, the benefit of having a thinner aperture ring on this one is it reminds you of what ring you're choosing. It's also and one thing I did mention earlier is that the f-stops are clicked. It is a clicked aperture ring, so that also tells you that you're turning the aperture ring. I recently got a Midicon 35mm 0.95, and this focusing ring that gives that some competition. This one might be edge that out just a little bit, but this one, it's a little easier for me to get confused on which ring I'm turning, partly because they feel somewhat similar, and the aperture ring is declicked, so it's a smooth turn on this one, which is great for video, but for photo, sometimes it's easy just to forget which ring you're turning, and you end up turning the aperture instead of the focus ring. Since it is an f2.0 lens, it's not meant to be a bokeh monster, as some people call other lenses, so it's not meant for that. It's meant to be a street photography style lens. It's meant to be compact, so it's easy to carry around, and all that is great, and all those are reasons enough for you to try it out. But as far as image quality goes, it's gonna suffer a little bit from all the standard flaws that a lot of budget lenses have. It's gonna have a little bit of chromatic aberration and ghosting and flare. It's gonna have soft corners on some apertures, and maybe sometimes on all the apertures it might have soft corners. It's going to have some of these flaws that you come to expect from some of these budget lenses. I have yet to find one that doesn't have any flaws, so this is no exception. But the overall image quality stands up really, really well. And I know all my image samples don't show that because of the style I shoot. Like some of them are slow shutter speed, so they're blurry photos anyways. Like that's just the style I shoot. So for me, sometimes with choosing lenses on shoots like that, where I'm going out and shooting slow shutter speed stuff, or having in-camera motion on purpose to give my photos a interesting style or whatnot, sometimes me choosing a lens will come down to the feeling of using it, how I like how it feels to be on the camera being used, stuff like that. If I'm going out and shoot landscape or shooting portraits or shooting other projects, those require more scrutiny to the image quality and the other visual attributes of the lens itself. But this fits perfectly for me to have a walk around lens that I can just have fun with and know it'll fit in almost any bag easily because it's so compact. Like I've said before, if you watch my videos, and this may sound obvious, but it's just something to always keep in mind, is that oftentimes the compactness of your camera kit is the lens. It comes down to the lens. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the X100 series is so popular, because the lens that's on that camera is really small. So that makes that camera even more compact than the Leica Q2. I'm not saying it's a better camera than the Q2, but I'm just saying the Q2 lens, built-in lens, is a little longer. So if you're comparing size, the X100 is more compact. The point is, it's really compact and it fits that bill if you're looking for something to give your camera kit to make it as small as possible. This is a great option. I want to pick up another XE1 or XE2 someday soon, so I'm going to try that on one of those cameras. I think that will make a really nice compact setup. Whenever I get a lens like this, sometimes it takes me a bit just to get in the groove of manually focusing with that specific lens, because each manual focus lens is just slightly different. Whether it's the focus throw is different, the focus peaking is different from lens to lens. So each lens requires a little bit of practice, and I think I'm still practicing with this lens and still getting really comfortable with it. And I will at some point, but right now I'm kind of switching lenses here and there to review some, and others just to try out to see if I like them. I know this isn't like a super big comprehensive review. One of the big points I want to make is that, like, for me personally, I think it's hard to be really critical of a $65 lens. I was trying to think about what would make me not want to recommend this lens at $65. I mean, I don't know. I think maybe if I felt like you couldn't get any sharpness at all out of it, which I don't think that's true. I think there's some decent sharpness. I think if anything, if nothing else, if you want a character lens, when we say character lens, I usually mean if you want a lens that has some of those attributes that film camera lenses have, without getting an adapter, without paying the price of some of those film camera lenses now, because some of those prices have risen, this is a good option. I mean, at $65, I mean, it's, like I said, I think it's the cheapest lens that you can buy brand new for the Fuji system. So it's hard to go wrong. I don't know what I would be critical of if I was trying to be super picky. I don't know what I would pick out. It's just really tough to go wrong with a lens like this. I think if it was $65 and it was really a large lens, and it wasn't small and wasn't fun to use, then although it'd still be a good buy, I don't think I would want to use it as much. But the fact that it is tiny, that the focus ring is so smooth and nice, it makes me want to use it. It's a joy to use. Like when I have it on there, I'm not thinking about the price, the budget aspect of it or whatnot. I just want to go shoot more with it. And that's, to me, that's like the biggest endorsement I can give on a lens, is like, does it make me want to shoot? Some lenses, I see the images and that makes me want to shoot, like the Fujifilm 35mm f1.4, the magic lens, so to speak. When I look at the images I get with it, like, man, okay, that's why that lens is what it is, because of the images that come from it. So sometimes it is the images that inspire me, and sometimes it's a little bit of the images, but also more of the user experience. And that's what this is. This is a fun lens to use, and I think it's a pretty safe bet for almost any Fujifilm user and any other user of crop sensor stills cameras. So check out the TTartisan 25mm f2.0 if you want a lens to get started. If you just want a pancake lens, a budget lens, a lens with character, check it out. It's a pretty cool little budget pancake style street photography lens. So thanks again, as always, for watching, you guys. I'm amazed at how many subscribers I have received the past month. I invite you to subscribe if you haven't, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks again.